Chandra.
Got it. Okay.
All right, we are live.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Egg Harbor Book Club. It's June, and our selection was The Lager Queen of Minnesota, which was a fun read, light. If you haven't read it, it's a feel good. It's one of those feel good books. It's about two sisters. A family is split when their father leaves their shared inheritance to the other sister. And her name is Helen, and Edith doesn't get anything. And Edith, through her whole life, she's a good person, but she has to work many jobs, and she just struggles. And then added to the story, like I was 50% in, the granddaughter, and her name is Diana. She enters the story, and the shared theme throughout is beer. And I'll tell you, after I got done reading the book, I really wanted to go to One Barrel and just have a beer. Nothing fruity like the strawberry beer, but I enjoyed the book. It moved quickly, and it was a fun read. How did everyone? Did you like it?
I really liked it.
Yeah, I really liked it too.
I know more about beer than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
It's great. I didn't know all that.
I'm almost done with it. I'll probably finish it today, but I really like it so far.
Yeah. What's cool is in the back, it has all of the breweries that he interviewed, the brewmasters and the breweries. And there's one in St. Paul Surly brewery that he used, and they have a family theme going there. It's just a nice outdoor venue, and I thought of Surly a lot. Much bigger than this brewery, but yeah, so it was a fun read. Anyone not like it? Or
I appreciated your suggestion of listening to the NPR interview with the author.
That was good.
Because it gave you perspective as to why he wrote the book. And I thought it was really a poignant interview that is
and his mother, his tribute to his mother.
Right. That his mother never got to read any of his published works. But it also, if you read other reviews of it, New York Times, whatever year it was published, easy beach reads. But I thought it was very multi-layered, and I thought its approach to women and the way women talked in it was very easy to relate to, because it's the way we talk.
Yeah.
And I really liked the fact, I mean, I thought it started kind of slow, but then I really liked the fact that they went through how, if you have a small brewery, you have to stop, how it was just, it's very gritty. It's not easy. You got to really push your product and go, time after time to different bars, I thought that was interesting.
Now, Jess is what are you, a stout or not a scout? Or
a girl stout. So it's the women that get together and drink dark beers. But we've had a little hiatus as of late. But
and my daughter-in-law is in one of those in St. Paul, a group of women that share a love of beer and trying beer. And it was, and I've seen the publication that they used in it. It was, it's not just about beer too. I mean, it's about family, and it's about inheritances, which can be really causes a lot of strife in a lot of families. Has anyone had an inheritance nightmare story? No, everyone.
Not yet.
I thought that the author really spoke. I mean, I thought his prose was really great. thought the way he described Edith was really incredible. As a woman who, instead of asking how she asked for a raise, was she told the boss she was getting a second job. And even when she becomes known for her pies, she doesn't accept it. Edith has such resolve, yet Edith is bitter. I mean, she's mad at Helen that Helen got the money, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But and Diana embodies both of them. Diana has characteristics from both of them, and it was just a good story, and it was well told.
Well, his other book, The Kitchens of the Midwest, something Kitchens of the Midwest.
The Kitchens of the Midwest
is really good too. And the same kind of thing, like this has a brewery theme, that has a restaurant.
Yeah, tell me about that one a little bit. What has anyone read it?
I've read it. And
It was talked about in the Bailey's Harbor Book Club a couple months ago too.
Mm-hmm.
And he hopped on that one to talk. So you can hear some of his stories there if you go onto our YouTube channel. But it has a lot of recipes. It's a relationship book too, small town. I think it was the first one that we did virtual for Bailey's Harbor, and we were all kind of sad because it was supposed to be a lot of food. Everyone was bringing a food dish. So.
And Jess, you would like it because it's in it's in mostly Minnesota, but it's also in northwestern Wisconsin too, like where you're from, where you're from. So you would like that too.
Well, and I was saying Chandra, she spent time in Menominee, so like you may have recognized some of the, like it was fun to hear all the towns, like because I have a lot of family that lives over there, you know.
Yeah. So is anyone not a beer drinker and you're like
I'm not much of a beer drinker, but I really enjoyed this story.
Yeah, it didn't get long, all the beer thing.
It was interesting for me still. I mean, my husband drinks beer, my father, and so I'm not a big beer fan, but I really am enjoying this story.
Yeah. And in the story, when I was reading it, there's each chapter starts out with a price, a money amount, or a number. And I was listening to it for the first maybe fourth of the book, and in that I didn't notice it as much as when I started to read it, what that chapter heading meant. Did anyone else notice that and say, "Ooh, that's kind of cool"?
Well, in some of them it was obvious, and some of them sorry, I lost my screen.
We can hear you.
The iPad totally fell down. I couldn't quite figure out like what the money amount meant. Some of them was obvious, but particularly the last one, the last chapter with Helen, $1 million something.
Mm-hmm.
So that was obvious, but some of them I could see there was the reference, but I didn't quite know what the dollar amount was referring to. Did you all get it in every one?
No, I had to go back sometimes and figure out what does that cover. And it could have been like a tip that someone got, or each one was a different amount and a different reason. So yeah, I thought that was just a different way. For Kitchens of the Midwest, how did he set up the chapters for that? I can't remember, but I think it was in a cool way too. Morgan, do you remember?
Yeah, there was like two storylines. It was the main character, Eva. It follows her mostly, but it kind of jumps back and forth in timeline. There's that whole genre, it seems, for the last 15 years.
Yeah. And these are his only two books that he's written. And he's out in LA right now, doing screenwriting or some producing. What is he doing out in LA now, Morgan? He didn't say.
I think he talked about some of the stuff. He was doing some short stories. He was starting to do some short stories he was releasing through his website at the beginning of COVID here.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really funny, like having moved away from the Midwest and then, you know, for about 10 years and then get pulled back. It's just like, it's really fascinating when you have these authors that like, you know, there's like the Midwestern pull is a real thing, you know, and you have these, like even Charlie Bear guy, like he moved away, but then was pulled back. And like the rich culture of the Midwest is really, I mean, so great. I mean, I guess I haven't been from anywhere else, but I just think that it's so cool, like that people get to experience that through books, you know?
Yeah, and he does a great job of it. Diana was really an interesting character. I mean, first I thought, oh gosh, it's about two sisters. I don't know if I want to read, you know, but then they pull in this Diana who has she's into a theft ring with her friend Clarissa, and then selling it on. She's kind of a gritty character, and then she has this transformation that Frank gives her an education. What'd you think about Frank?
Why is she into a theft ring? That's really an interesting point. It goes back to the description of her grandmother saying asking for a raise is having two jobs. I mean, Diana starts stealing things so that she can pay her grandmother's bills.
Right. It was survival.
She comes to live with her grandmother because of the death of her parents in a car accident. And there are underlying tones in this book that are very far reaching. I mean, it explains a lot of things. I mean, that we're all experiencing right now about, you know, inequality, about workers and healthcare and what workers are important and that kind of thing. And I didn't really think of it that way when I was reading it, but since I read it a couple of months ago, that experience, you can't deny that that's there too. That he's it's very timely. And I don't think he knew exactly how timely he was.
It's funny.
Lager Queen of Minnesota.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
I said, who do you think was the Lager Queen of Minnesota? The title is, but there were 3 women that were brewmasters, and I wonder who you all think is the Lager Queen.
I think it altered.
Yeah.
As their stories developed.
I would agree with that.
I mean, Edith was given the nickname by someone at the nursing home that she worked at, as he called her the Lager Queen. And that's the only reference in the book to the word Lager Queen. But it could have been any of them. But in the end, it was really Edith who was the Lager Queen. Her beer is the only beer that scored 100 points. That's Grandma's strawberry. So I mean, in the end, she kind of was the Lager Queen. What else do you think about that?
I think that it was really interesting Blatz. Like, I guess, you know, nowadays people just write it off, like just been, you know, but it really it was really like a big beer back in the day. Like I remember my dad drinking it, you know, and like there are these like beers that before beer got sort of so complex, like these standard beers were like very prized and beloved, you know.
Schlitz and Blatz and
right.
Yeah.
Miller High
Hams.
Life.
Oh, Hams.
Grain Belt was the big one.
Grain Belt. Yeah. Actually, they still make Grain Belt too. My uncle won't drink anything but.
And see, they have one that's more than 3.2. You know, it's a stronger beer, so that's why people like it.
Mm-hmm.
And the light beer is because her brewery, I mean, was kind of all about the light beer and putting it all together. In the beginning, there wasn't a real popular light beer, and she had that. What was that motto for her? Blatz or Blotz?
Oh, Blatz, drink lots.
I'm like, oh gosh.
But Helen was so single-minded and like a really harsh character, and
Yeah,
It was kind of
rigid.
needed, very rigid. But at the end, I don't know for the has everybody read it? Somebody hadn't quite finished it, but to see her soften and come around to family was kind of very touching.
Yeah,
Was she the older one? Who was the older sister?
Edith.
Edith was
Edith.
older by about 10 years, maybe, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how something like that happens early in their 20s. They have this split, and then how it continued up into their 70s.
But Helen got it totally wrong. It was Edith when she was 15 years old who brought her the beer and left it, and she thought she never knew that. She thought it was her father, and developed a closer relationship to her father because of it. And Edith never, the fact that she was close to the father made Edith happy. And then in the end, she got the raw end of that deal.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't believe in all that time that the two sisters never got together or talked to each other or even thought about each other. Kind of hard to believe at the end when they did get together that all those years neither one of them had done a thing with each other.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't know.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
Family.
Yeah.
I know families where the brothers haven't talked in 20 years. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that to me was believable.
I
Tough,
agree.
but
I also thought it was interesting. I looked up the two women he mentioned that started New Glarus Brewery and I forget the other brewery. I mean, they actually were started and are run by women.
Well, each of the sisters experiences the loss of a husband. How are they different in how they express their grief, and how are they similar? So they both did you see any differences between how that was? No. I thought with the death of her husband Edith, it was kind of lasted a really long time for her, the grieving, and with Helen, it was she grieved, but it was a quicker done. Now I have to move on and get things done, kind of thing. But with Edith, it seemed to go on. But also they had different. I don't think Helen had very many friends. I don't think she had any friends. No one knew what she looked like.
No.
And Edith, in the end, you found out, when they started that brewery, she had a lot of friends. I mean, she had the Arby's friends and the nursing home friends. She had a lot of friends, and those friends they would do anything for her. So I think she was in the end, Edith was a very kind person, but I don't know if you could be too kind to I don't know. What do you think? I know, Trissa, you had some thoughts on that.
Well, I think that Edith was a very believable character. She was a good person. She worked hard. She looked out for people, but her sister screwed her. She was mad at her sister. And she was mad at her for years. Helen was manipulative to a certain extent. She orchestrated. She went after the guy that owned Blatt's Brewery. And when you were talking about the difference in their grieving process, I would say that she was genuinely in love with her husband. And they also were partners. They struggled together. And also he died of Alzheimer's, which robs you of a lot. And can prolong things because you remember things before the Alzheimer's, and the Alzheimer's confuses things up. Whereas Helen's marriage was a means to an end. She got to be rich. She got to own a brewery. She was the promoter. He was the money. He was the name. I'm not, you just didn't have the same feeling that like about Helen ever that you did about Edith.
Yeah.
Helen just
Helen was single-minded.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
To succeed in Greer. And so she was single-minded about going about it with her college education and
Right.
finding a way to do it. She did love her husband. They had a mutual passion for the business and she did love him. But she was single-minded, and a woman of her age, in order to be as successful as she was, you needed to be single-minded. And so, I think they both loved their husbands and they grieved in their own way. But Helen always was going to be the lager queen. She was always going to be the brewmaster.
Well, and I think at that time you really need to, especially at that time, you really need to kind of choose between like career or family. And that was what she chose. She chose career and she had to throw her whole life into it.
I think they both struggled with fertility issues. It was something in their family. And do you think if Helen had children, she would have been different?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think she would want that brewery to continue for her family, just like Diana. I don't know. I think because Edith mentioned how she struggled, and then Diana she inherited that. So it was kind of but having children, Edith was different. I mean, she had those children, or the child. No, she had two children. That her son was kind of, he came around in the end. Oh yeah, he used his mother. That's right.
Yes.
What'd you think of that relationship?
He was terrible.
He was
Well, but that goes back to Edith's like really nice, like
pushover.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting how Diana had a perfect score on the PSAT, was it? And she didn't even remember taking it. And I'm like, geez, I remember those tests and how awful they were. But that wasn't important to her. And not all kids are, back when we were in school, it was like, oh, you had to go to college. But in this story, it says sometimes maybe college isn't, even though you're so bright, maybe college isn't your direction. And hers was to be a brewmaster. Were you like, oh no, you should go to college? Or how did you feel like that turn for Diana? Did you think she should have gone to school and had that experience? She might not have gone back to the brewery then.
Well, but before she even could make that decision, Frank jumped. Wasn't it, his name was Frank, right?
Frank, yeah.
He was her savior.
Yes.
He's the one who saved her from, whatever path she might have been going down with the theft ring and so forth. I mean, he, caught her and then gave her a job, made her take a job, made her pay him back.
And even if she would have gone to school, then she would have had to get probably an unpaid internship, and it would have put her so much further behind where she had all the education she needed right in front of her.
But do you think Frank was pretty cruel to her, the way he made her keep redoing her brew and over and over again when he knew it was good many, many attempts before that?
I don't know. I think
he was just trying to make her tough. Just get it right and know that it's not going to be easy.
And I think he went through that same kind of learning where he had
Yeah.
to go through and keep trying until it was perfect. And
I
Yeah.
think we all go down to, there's 3 breweries around here that really, make all these beers. And I'm going to go to a couple of them. The one in Bailey's Harbor really makes a lot of beers, and they make it too.
Mhm.
I'm just going to go and ask them what they thought about all this.
Well, so does Shipwreck, don't they?
Yeah,
Mhm.
They're
Yep.
and One Barrel.
Well, it's a difference in whether you're making it or just kind of getting it in and finishing it.
Well, One Barrel, they make their beer, I believe, in Madison and then ship it up because that's
Right.
their flagships down in Madison. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
They're really doing it. They make it at Bailey's Harbor.
Shipwrecked, I think, makes it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
You
can
can see.
go there and ask them what they think.
And then there's Anapee too, that's down in Algoma.
right.
And then actually Starbird, they make their own beer. They're in Sturgeon Bay, and they're I think they're on site.
What's it called?
Starbird. It's right on 3rd in
Okay.
Sturgeon Bay.
I'm going.
I like the vibe of Door County Brewery. I mean, I
Oh
like
yeah.
it's and then in the winter they have on Tuesday nights, it's local Tuesday, and they'll have a trivia night with trivia teams, and if you're not a beer drinker, you can bring in your own whatever you want to drink. And
Back in the old days.
Too.
Yeah.
Hard ciders too.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, they do a good job, and I think One Barrel's doing a good job too. We'll go there, and the grandkids will play games, and yeah. So just like what Diana dreamed, that hers would be a family place. Yeah. Oh, I felt so sorry for her when she had that one babysitter come in with the kids,
Yeah.
and how awful she was to her, and then yeah, it was
She broke her leg.
yeah. And then she
Yeah.
had her baby. It forced her to have her baby. It was like, oh, what a nightmare.
Kind of an interesting concept when you talk about beer places being family oriented, because originally that's what they were, because immigrants are new workers. I don't know what's politically correct to say anymore. When people first came to live in this country and they lived in small quarters, their family would go to a tavern, and a tavern typically had a living room. It was a place where they could sit with their family, and the adults drank and the children interacted. I don't know, but that's the original concept of Wisconsin taverns. So it's interesting that now that there's this push going back to it, to include,
Right.
to provide a space
Yeah.
where the adults drink and the children play games. But
Well, and I think it's really interesting. Go ahead, Maureen. Sorry.
I didn't read the book. I read The Stationery Shop. And I had this for July, and I'm like, and I was really interested in reading this because my son is a head brewer at a microbrewery in Minneapolis.
Oh, cool.
Bauhaus.
Wow.
And so when you were talking about being a family, they have all kinds of family events, and they just opened up they have a great outdoor area. They just opened that up to have, again, the family events. But he wanted me to read this book. I said, well, it's in my July queue, so I'll give it to you as soon as I'm done.
Oh yeah, you got to
So
read
he's
it. So
interested
he
in reading
told
this.
you.
I know. I'm so frustrated. And Janine, you probably remember I worked at Miller Brewing Company.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to really get into this book. So I like The Stationery Shop, though.
yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Please,
I'm totally out of sync here.
Maureen, I agree. Please put The Stationery Shop back on. I also read both of them, but The Stationery Shop was excellent.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll put it back
Yes.
on. It'll be put back on. It's just, it was gonna be really hard to get for
No,
all of
I
us.
understand, but I just am plugging.
Yeah. And I had
It's a great read. It's an easy read, great read. So,
yeah.
but I'm looking
What's
forward
the
to
name
this
of
one.
your
We'll get right
brother-
on it. Oh, pardon?
What was that?
What's the name of your brother's beer brewery?
It's my son, and it's
Oh, your son.
Bauhaus. Bauhaus.
Oh, I know where that
Bauhaus.
is.
Really?
That's a
Yeah,
cool
yeah.
place. I've
Yeah.
been
Well, the
there.
next time you're up there, you have to look them up.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going soon. I definitely will. I came
Yeah.
from there, so I'm definitely gonna look.
Oh, it's a great brewery. It's I'm not just saying that. It really is a great brewery. He was out in Denver for a while, and then he came back to Minneapolis. So,
And there's a great furniture
but that's
store right by.
his. Oh, really?
Blue
I'll have
Dot.
to check that out.
Yeah, Blue Dot is right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Distribution that
I'm
same
gonna
way
write that down.
What was
when
that?
when they go sell it. I thought that was one of the more interesting things in the book, is how they go out and take the beer and try to get into the bars to sell it. What does your son say about that?
The way it's
Well,
done.
you know, there's regulations on who you work with in terms of distributorship, and that's real political, actually. And the big outfits have locked out some of the microbreweries. So during this whole pandemic, they a lot of these microbreweries have invested in container runs because it's inexpensive and you can do it very quickly. But without getting into too much detail, the legislature in Minnesota has locked that out, and it's only big breweries that can sell through a distributorship. And so the orders were in queue, the bigger ones first. So some of the microbreweries are really in trouble in Minnesota, and they have a lot up there, as you probably know.
Yeah.
So they're doing fine, thankfully, but some of them are in trouble because of this political thing. So it's unfortunate because these microbreweries, this is really an economic engine for a lot of entrepreneurs. And it's, you know, they have merchandising. I mean, there's all kinds of different avenues that they can do and expand their small business.
And I know they use the one that your son's at, they use food trucks will come in the parking lot. And
yes. And then
that's
they have bands, and they have
Yeah.
bands because it's owned by three brothers, and the brothers are all very musical. So anyway,
Yeah.
Nancy, you were
Expanded the amount of volume that the microbrewers can have in order to help them with their distribution, because most microbreweries will not be profitable for a distributor. And so that's why they've allowed them to increase that. It is a minute amount of money that the distributors can make off the microbreweries. So, because you got to get the shelf space, and you got to get the cold box space, and there's a lot of components to that. This was one of my senior marketing classes that we would study this.
right. Well, I'm familiar with some of that because I worked at Miller, and you know that was a machine, and that was before they merged with Coors. But the microbreweries, it's a whole different way of working. And in Denver, where he worked before, it was a different vibe. It was more your relationship with your distributors. And again, the profitability versus having legislation to lock you out. So just different.
So
Anyway,
is your son
I'm looking forward to reading this.
Oh,
Yes,
you'll love it.
he's the head brewer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is
so
you'll love this book.
He's a science guy. It's heavy in chemistry and microbiology and all of that. So that's what he's into.
Did he go to school for it, or did?
Well, his he's a microbiology and biology double major, and then his blow off class his senior year was microbrewing, and he just really, I know, and the professor really, saw a lot of potential in him, and so he went from there. Yeah.
That's cool.
So,
And that's that
all
was
of his friends were very jealous.
yeah.
They're
Helen's
starting out in
route.
these. Okay. All right. Very interesting.
Yeah, that's what Helen
Yeah.
did. She was a chemistry major, and I think her husband was too. But yeah, they went. That's how they met, and she targeted him. Yeah, it was just funny how she
Okay.
just discovered how she liked beer. Usually, it takes you a while to get used to it, but she just.
Well, he clearly discovered he liked beer in college. So, like some of the rest of us, I'm sure. But anyway, so.
One thing that I wanted to bring up, just with Trissa talking about, taverns being a family establishment, like, again, like going elsewhere, like in Oregon, for instance, like there are a lot of bars you can't go in unless you're 21. So like, it was so weird to me to like go out there and like be like, what? Oh, like you can't bring your kids in here? Like
Exactly.
that's a really interesting thing. Like, oh, the whole family, like I just remember going to the taverns as a kid, like getting a burger, and like out there, it just seemed like very like taboo to like bring your kid to a bar. The cultures are just so different.
Wisconsin definitely developed as the tavern culture. And when you Miles Danhausen several years ago wrote a really interesting article about the history of taverns and bars in Wisconsin. And that's why I know these little bits of information. But Wisconsin definitely, at one point in time, was a bar culture state. At one point in time, Wisconsin drank more brandy than the lower 48 states combined. One of the major industries in this state for a long time was beer making, and every town had its own brewery. But that's one thing that's interesting about the book. And Maureen, I'd like to know if, you haven't read it, damn it. Takes you through like Helen, is the light queen person. Okay. And then that phases out. And that light beer is still around, but microbreweries are now what is in. And Diana is a microbrewery. It's almost, I really think that the author did a good job in researching the beer industry.
Yeah.
Well, and now it's like low alcohol, like beverages are back again,
Right.
Yeah, the all day IPA, it's like.
It goes along with eating kale instead of greasy burgers and beer, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, here's it lists in the back all of the breweries. There's Eau Claire, Tucson. He went everywhere, and it's so make sure in the acknowledgments. Did you read that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that really
I imagine
kind of
you could do a
explains.
lot of research, that you could write off.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That research.
Yeah.
Who read the
And
article?
then,
I didn't read that.
pardon me?
Who read the article? That you
Oh,
told us the article. I didn't read it, but I wondered if anybody did.
I did read it. Article?
It was NPR, yeah.
The interview was great.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it talks more about his mother, the relationship with his mother, and his being an author, and he wanted to give women this other persona. I think, and I think about all the grandmas at the brewery working, and all of them got to have a beer, and that was pretty funny. And I mean, I could see it being really a kind of a quaint, cool thing. Go to the brewery with the grandmas. And
Mhm.
yeah, that was cool.
I just like cool how everybody just banded together and just got it done.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
really cool. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, regardless of like their age or, you know, their status, they just got together and got it done.
Yeah.
Which is a value that the Midwest touts.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And I think,
Well,
go on.
I was just going to say that in Denver, you know, it was a very friendly atmosphere in a microbrewery, but it's not like Minneapolis. I mean, they're a really tight group up there. So again, it's that Midwest connection. Denver is more transient. So.
Hmm.
Can I ask about next month's book, the In the World News?
News of the World.
Oh dear.
Is anybody having trouble getting into it? I'm having a really tough time getting past like the first, 30 pages.
Oh no.
Haven't started it.
Yeah,
Okay.
do you have copies?
That book that'll be easy to get a hold of, and it's on Hoopla. I'll have copies next week for everyone. And the only
So that's July?
Yeah, I was looking for books that you could download, but if you don't think it's good,
Having a tough time getting into it, so that's why I asked. I was hoping somebody would say, "Oh yeah, it's great. You just got to get to page whatever," and I have yes.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, I haven't
I-
read it. I just thought it would be a good read. It's available. We can get it, but now things are, as of today, you can now hold again up to 10
Oh.
books. So today's the first day of holding, so it'll be easier to get things. And so, I mean, we could do the stationery shop. We could change it back. News of the World is going to be a December 25th movie. You know, those are always the big movies that come out. And it's with Tom Hanks. And the premise sounded wonderful, that he would ride around the West reading the news to the people. And it's short. It's very short.
Good. Well, then I'll keep on going.
Well, I usually read them on Audible or listen to them, but it's not available until August on Audible.
Really?
Well, because I went to download it and you can hold it, but you can't get it until August. So
It's
I
available
don't know
on
if any,
ebooks.
on which one?
And
On
I
ebooks. Not Audible, but it's ebooks.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
okay.
free download so should we just stick with it, everyone? And then stationery shop will probably be September.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just at the time there was no holding, and I'm like, how we can get books? And so we'll do News of the World. We'll read it. She is a prolific author, and maybe we can get her to come to our meeting. Well, I'll try. And so we'll do News of the World for our next one. Then it's the Dutch House, which the books will be available. Bailey's Harbor did it this month. And then we'll do Stationery Shop.
The Dutch House is actually next week for Bailey's Harbor. So 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay. Which is another great book. Oh, wow. That's a great book. It'll be a great read for you all. And the books will be available. Yes.
Janine, if you invite the author to come, I'm going to throw my 2 cents worth in. Please set it up like it was with Pam Jenhoff.
Sure. Yeah.
Where she came for a half an hour. She set it up. She answered questions. And I don't mean to be rude, but sometimes when the author's there, I've been to a couple of them where all we do is and be in awe of the author.
Yeah.
We don't discuss. And one of the things that I find the most rewarding, valuable, and look forward to is to be able to hear what other people think about the book. And that gives me a better insight into it. Whereas if we sit there and ask the author questions like we're in awe of, I've
Yeah.
been a couple of these where it's like, just, I've left because it's like, I don't need to know that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
No,
my 2
no.
cents worth about the
No,
author.
and you know what? Pam taught me that. I mean, after Pam did that and she left, I'm
Right.
like, whoa, that's the way to do it. Because as I said, there were some things I wasn't like, yes, this is a fantastic book. I mean, there were some things in it that we questioned, but it was a good book. I mean, but there
It
were
was,
some.
but you also are hamstrung. Be at a discussion where the book is lousy and you've invited the author.
Yeah.
It's just itching to say it's lousy, but you're not going to because the author's there. Whereas if the author hadn't have been there, you would have ripped it to shreds. I did not appreciate it during that one.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to throw that out. Thank
All
you.
right. So we'll be able to rip it to shreds next month if we don't.
Well, I don't know if we will or we won't, but what I'm saying is that there's such good give and take in people's opinions, and people see things that other people don't see. Particularly, I've learned things about this book today. I never paid any attention to the money.
Ah.
Okay.
It's fun to go back and look at let me just pull up a chapter so you
I
see
did
what
when you told when
when I was
Jenny
talking
pointed
about
out
it.
the
Yeah.
obvious one. I did it.
Yeah, so like this one, like I don't what's $31, and I would go through, I'm like, what does that mean? And it kind of was I don't know, I always like those little quirky things that authors do. I think it just adds a little something. I love when they do that kind of stuff. So, well, any other last thoughts?
I know a good book that would remind you of this. It's about 4 women and it's funny, sort of like this one. It's called the Stone Diaries. It's an old book, but I think you'd really like it.
Oh, okay. Stone Diaries. All right. Well, Morgan will write that down on Facebook and we'll get that. Anyone else have any recommendations of books that remind them of this Lager Queen?
Someone on Facebook, Kathy, mentioned sitting here in Illinois, enjoying your meeting as our local mystery book club is getting back to meeting since the library is still closed and they're trying to convince people to use Zoom. So has everyone enjoyed doing the Zoom meetings with us all?
Great.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yes, right.
And I think we can
Yeah, very
continue,
helpful.
even if we are able to meet, we can still Zoom it because we have the capability of doing that in the history room or upstairs. So we'll always be able to have Zoom people. So we can keep doing it. Our building is made for that. So that'll be good. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good book and
great.
I enjoyed it. And any last thoughts on our read here? I think we hit all of.
This isn't about the read, but this is something I'd like to say to both you and Morgan. I'd like to thank you. Library workers should be on the list of essential workers. I would like to thank you, Morgan, and the rest of the Door County Library staff. You've made it easy for us to keep reading, and Morgan taught us all how to be able to use Zoom and not be afraid of computers. And you've given us a sense of community. And I thank you and your fellow workers for this. I really think you deserve applause.
Yay,
Thank
Morgan.
Yay, Janine.
Well, everyone, it was great talking with you all today.
Sandra, good to see you.
You too.
It's good to see everyone. And and looking
Bye-bye.
forward to talking about our next book, good or bad, news of the world. And we'll post all that on Facebook. And then We'll still do stationery shop because that's a kind
it's
of book we
excellent.
haven't read. We'll do it
Is
eventually.
it, so, okay, yeah, it's quite good. So the updates are on Facebook. Maybe that's why I missed it.
Yeah, it's on
Right.
Facebook. You know
Okay.
what? We just need, if you can, I'll message you on Facebook. I need your email
Okay.
because I keep everyone updated on email. So if someone is not on
Okay.
our email list, just message me on Facebook. Is that the best way to do it, Morgan? To get their emails?
Or they
What's the
can email
Facebook
to
group?
the website too. So if you go to the website and go to the contact form and specifically say, I want to be on the email list for Egg Harbor.
Okay.
What is
great.
the Facebook group?
The Facebook is it's our virtual book club. I put things up there about
Okay.
books that we're reading.
Egg Harbor
And-
virtual between the pages book discussion.
So
This
if you
is
go to,
all also listed on the Door County Library website under the header of book clubs and films.
Yeah,
so,
and
but
I
if you
think
wanted
I've
to join
changed
the
it
group-
more.
If you wanted to join the group on Facebook, you just go to facebook.com/Door County Library. And then on the left-hand column, you'll see groups as a choice. Click on that and then you'll see the Egg Harbor Book Club group and then you can click to join it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
and yeah, and you can also get a hold of me at, you can just write to egg@doorcountylibrary.org, and I'll get that too. So it's egg@doorcountylibrary.org, and tell me you want to be on the list, and I'll put you on the list. Okay, everyone. Well, it's a gorgeous
Okay.
day out. So it's
Bye.
good seeing everyone.
Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Great. All right.
Bye
Thanks.
now.
Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.